Welcome to Dialogue Out Loud.
I'm Margaret Olsen Hemming, co-editor of Dialogue, a Journal of Mormon Thought.
This episode is introducing our summer 2025 issue, which has the theme of the Book of Mormon, and I'm excited for you to get a sneak peek at its contents. So I'm going to start with a little description of the academic pieces that are in this issue. We begin with
Joseph Smith's Spiritual Language, The Presence of Early Modern English in the Book of Mormon by William Davis.
Was Joseph Smith the translator of the Book of Mormon, or simply the mouthpiece for a text that already existed in English? In this provocative new article, William Davis challenges the dominant interpretation advanced by Royal Skousen and Stanford Carmack, who argue for a tightly controlled word-for-word transmission of the Book of Mormon. By reevaluating the linguistic and historical assumptions that undergird their claims, this essay reopens the question of Joseph's active role. Could Joseph have drawn from a broader linguistic reservoir than previously acknowledged, one shaped by early 19th century exposure to older English texts? And might the so-called evidence for tight control actually point in the opposite direction? This article not only complicates the debate, but invites us to rethink how we define translation in the context of sacred scripture. I think this one is particularly interesting with the new biography of Joseph Smith coming out. It's a good article to read alongside that book. Next, we have Enos Encoded, Narrative Structure in the Small Plates by Ryan A. Davis. Davis asks, what if we took Jerem and Abinadom at their word that what had already been written on the small plates was sufficient? This article takes that provocative question as a starting point for a theological and narratological reading of the Book of Enos and the small plates as a whole. Drawing on Adam Miller's invitation to seek the latent images of Christ within a text structure, the author explores how the small plates' divine architecture not only testifies of Christ, but invites readers into a transformative relationship with him. Using tools from literary theory, especially Roland Barthes' narrative codes, this essay illuminates how Enos's personal wrestle before God can be read as a ritualistic act of sacrifice that reveals the book's deeper theological ethos. The result is a fresh and compelling argument that the small plates are not merely historical or doctrinal, but profoundly Christocentric and spiritually formative. This is the Book of Mormon read not just as record, but as a call for transformation. And finally, we're previewing a witty and sharply satirical piece from John Durham Peters titled Thaddeus of Warsaw and the Book of Mormon, a Symposium. In it, Peter riffs on the uncanny resonance between an 1803 British sentimental novel and the Book of Mormon. Not to flatten the latter, but to explore how bricolage, not ex nihilo creation, might be the truer key to understand Scripture. What if revelation, like creation itself, happens through the joining of spirits with pre-existing elements? With humor and insight, Peters reminds us that the Book of Abraham pictures the God saying, "We will take of these materials and we will make an earth." Very different from ex nihilo creation ideas in Christianity. Maybe even Thaddeus of Warsaw could be such material. Tune in for satire that opens up fresh theological questions about authorship, influence, and the very nature of the divine voice. I'm going to talk to our personal narratives editor next. So they will give you the preview for that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte Hanson-Terry. I'm the Personal Voices editor, and we have two great Personal Voices essays in this summer 2025 The first piece is by Nanette Rasban Hilton, titled A Name of Her Own. And for this piece, Hilton, who's a rhetorician, collaborated with Annalee Polson, a contemporary artist. So you'll notice as you review this piece that there are pieces by Polson that reflect the three ancient symbols of the feminine divine that Hilton focuses on in her piece: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So I really enjoyed the interplay between Hilton's thoughts and analysis and then Polson's representations of that analysis. Our second personal voice essay is from Bryant Thompson, titled No Hard Feelings. And this is a piece where Thompson reflects on his experiences seeing his brother battle ALS, a progressive neurodegenerative disease. And so he explores suffering in detail through this piece and brings together his and his brother's observations alongside the words of others that he's studied on this topic. And so he reflects powerfully on suffering and how we grapple with it in our lives and within Mormon theology. And it gave me a great deal to think about.
That sounds great, Charlotte. I would love to hear one moment from this essay that stayed with you and why. Why did it resonate with you?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things I'll focus on something from Thompson's on the ideas of suffering. When I originally read Thompson's piece, it actually reminded me of this other really powerful piece that I've thought about a lot over the last 10 years or so. And this was a piece by Francine Benyon titled A Latter-day Saint Theology of Suffering. And she gave this address at a BYU women's conference in 1986. And I actually mentioned it to Thompson as he was working on this personal voice essay. And he ended up incorporating it into his piece. And so it was really interesting to work with him on that piece and really kind of think about the things that I've read and how he's bringing together a lot of different ideas about this. It's very often a topic we always don't talk about within Mormon studies, these ideas of suffering and what that theology might look like. And so I felt like Thompson built in some really cool ways on this piece by Benyon back from the 1980s. And it was really interesting for me, especially because of that, to think about how they interplayed. And I mean, he has a lot of other pieces he pulls from as well. But it was really great to be in conversation with him to even add a little bit more as he was working on that piece.
I love that. And I love that a personal narratives piece is drawing on the amazing history of Mormon studies and the, great scholars that have gone before us and using their work to strengthen his own piece. That's wonderful. Thank you. Next, we have Andrew Hall to talk about some of our book reviews.
So I have 3 literature book reviews that I was in charge of this time. 2 of them are by Sarah Nickel Moore, who's one of our great reviewers. She's a scholar of medieval and early modern literature, and a very incisive reviewer of contemporary literature. And she reviewed 2 books: The Tales of the Kelm First Ward, a novel written in a series of connected short stories by a trio of family members: James Goldberg, Nicole Wilkes Goldberg, and Mattathias Singh. And also American Trinity and Other Stories from the Mormon Corridor by David Pace, which is a collection of short fiction. Both these books, incidentally, won the Association for Mormon Letters awards this year, the first for novel and the second for short story collection. So already an amazing group. And Sarah does a great job reviewing these 2. And the first one, Tells of the Kelm First Ward, is a very funny, very high concept collection of stories. The idea of a group of Jewish converts to the LDS Church in Poland and what their community is like, and looking at their different ones. And it's definitely for comic purposes, comparing their experiences to Western Latter-day Saints. Interesting kind of high concept use of this a traditional form of Jewish humor to look at Mormon society. And then American Trinity by Pace is a much more, it has some very funny parts as well, but it's a darker look at LDS life from a former LDS person, but loving and concerned, but also very aware of some of the dark aspects of LDS life, and also contains quite a bit of magical realism in those books. So two really great books, and just great reviews by Sarah Moore. And then the third book is Carrie Spencer Prey and Jen Lee Smith's I Spoke to You with Silence: Essays from Queer Mormons of Marginalized Genders. and this is reviewed by Robert Rees. Bob Rees was the second editor of Dialogue, going back to the early 70s, scholar of humanities at UCLA, and now the director of Mormon Studies at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. So he has been one of the people who's been very involved in discussing the experiences of LGBTQ Latter-day Saints going back way into the 70s. So he's been a real leader in that, one of our really great thinkers. And he just speaks the world of this book, I Spoke to You with Silence, a collection of 39 stories covering a wide variety of identifications and relationships within the LGBTQ spectrum, doing a lot about female queerness, but also issues of mixing ideas of queerness with race and disability, autism, and all different kinds of, trans and other non-binary people, their experiences. And Pray's also the editor of another book that came out recently, the Book of Queer Mormon Joy. And Bob talks about that too and compares the stories in those two collections.
Hi, thank you. That sounds amazing. You had the authors of the Kelm First Ward on the Dialogue Book Report last year.
Yeah, we got to interview them. At least two of them were there for that. And just as the book is very funny, it was very fun to talk to them. They're very witty, interesting people. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Caroline, would you share the book reviews that you edited for this issue?
Absolutely. Yes, we have 3 academic book reviews that I was in charge of. The first is by Cyrus Simper, who reviews Christina Rossetti's biography called Joseph White Musser, a Mormon Fundamentalist. And this is a book that is entertaining to read. It's complex, it's nuanced, and it recounts and analyzes this man's life, Joseph Musser's life, who had a hard time transitioning after the manifesto, and just felt absolutely convicted that he needed to continue the principle. And so it's the story of his journey and his ultimate excommunication in the 1920s and his involvement in the fundamentalist Mormon movement. The next academic book review that we have is one by Colby Townsend, and he reviews a book called They Shall Grow Together, the Bible and the Book of Mormon, edited by Charles Swift and Nicholas J. Frederick. And this collection of essays is the 4th volume in the Book of Mormon Academy series from the Religious Studies Center at Brigham Young University. In this volume, the essays are looking at a variety of aspects that connect the biblical world to the Book of Mormon and or analyze how the Book of Mormon takes up biblical themes or ideas or quotes. It's a bit of a mixed review, which is absolutely to be expected in an edited volume where you have all sorts of different essays and authors. Colby Townsend says that some of the essays are great and really strong, and clearly with a great depth of knowledge of the Bible, and others are maybe a little bit less so. He does make it clear in his review that this is a book with a devotional edge. I mean, this is a book meant for believing Mormons. It will be of interest to Mormons as opposed to non-LDS scholars. And the last book that we have is by Russell Arbin Fox, and he reviews Grant Hardy's The Annotated Book of Mormon, which came out a couple years ago. And this, according to Russell Arbin Fox, was just a game changer in terms of Book of Mormon study. The way that Hardy so brilliantly, what's it called? Like kind of reorganizes the text and, makes the poetry parts look like poetry, and then has all these amazing footnotes that give comments and make connections to the Bible. He says that it just absolutely transformed the way he was able to read the Bible. He said it was just an absolutely magnificent experience to be reading the Book of Mormon with this kind of format that Hardy came up with and with the commentary. So those are the 3 book reviews that are academic.
Thank you. I have to ask, were there any reviews that made you just super eager to pick up one of these books and put it at the top of your pile?
Out of these three, I am definitely most drawn to to Christina Rossetti's Joseph White Musser, a Mormon fundamentalist. I've just not really gotten into or studied Mormon fundamentalism, and I think this would just be a terrific introduction. It sounds like this is a nuanced, complex, just a great, recounting of this man's life and his relationship to this larger movement, which I would love to learn more about. So that's probably the one I'm most excited to delve into.
Okay, great. Thank you. Poetry.
Okay. Hello, my name is Teresa Wellborn. I'm the poetry editor for Dialogue. In this issue, we have 9 poems by 5 poets. First off, we have 3 by Doug Barrett, the first one being entitled Mamiji. It pays homage to his mission in Japan, a visit to a Shinto shrine. He speaks of 2 white-shirted figures. He speaks of a wooden dipper upon a well. There is some musing and deep cultural appreciation. The tone is questing, full of wonder. And there's a phrase that really struck me. The phrase is the work of attunement. And as Latter-day Saints, I think we talk a lot about atonement. And I like that he discusses the work of those at the shrine and how they are attuned for decades and centuries of sweeping and contemplation. So it's definitely one to savor and enjoy. The second poem by Doug Barrett is entitled A Little Death. Again, pays homage to his time in Japan as a missionary. I felt like this poem was very Miyazaki-esque. If any of you are familiar with the famous Japanese animator and filmmaker, I felt as if I was with him on this journey. There was a mute old sun. They were basking in the glow that sometimes fasting casts upon the world. It felt very magical realism and Brueggelesque with distant figures. Very lovely. Very, very poetic. And we might come back to that later. Another poem by Doug Barrett, the last of the 3, Crossing Over, and it's for Dan, Washington, D.C. North Mission. And this one talks about the kind of birding you hate. And I'm not a birder, but it does make me curious. And he also talks about sleep, rest, sore feet, who can say it's over, beyond us out there, the impossible other shore. And I get the feeling that he wrote this in a wistful questing tone for a friend or colleague who was on a mission. So the next poem, moving forward, Some Stay by one of our favorites, Shirley Mullins Glenn. She talks about leaving the church, and she compares that with birds. Some stay, some go. Finches and sparrows, for instance, they stay and they sing their tiny hearts out. Some might discuss in many circles related to Mormonism that there has been an exodus perhaps in past years of a younger generation and of folks perhaps disillusioned with LGBTQ and on and on. And she really faces this conversation head on. The poem is brief and very poignant. The next poem is another poem that's a bit short as well and impactful. It is entitled Layover by D.A. Cooper. This one talks about the airport as being an analogy to life. So we enter this space, this other space, this place of wanderers and nomads, and who are we among them? What is our place? Are we pilgrims? Are we stopping to pray as we're passing through? What is our timetable, and how does our Creator place us within that? I like the short space that he uses to consider those things. Riley Clay, we're publishing his at my house. And that's a great one. He talks about Heavenly Mother. And there's been quite a bit of conversation about Heavenly Mother in more recent years in the world of LDS literature and conversation. And I do appreciate that he asks questions that often perhaps in different settings one might be hesitant to ask and to face, even now. As we have Dove Song, a Book of Heavenly Mother poetry, and quite a few articles and such out there on Heavenly Mother. He's questing, he's asking, why do we pretend she's not here with us? And I appreciate his thoughts and musings on our Heavenly Mother. And then now we arrive to the last 3. And these last three poems in our issue are by Isaac James Richards. The first of the three is entitled A Modest Paraphrase of Alma 3044. I love this poem. You guys, it's so great. He has uses such humor and wry, like he comes at this. When I read it for the first time, I was very impressed. He takes watching General Conference and turns it on his head. And you'll definitely want to check this poem out. It's short and compact, and it kind of looks like a television. And he actually talks about television, tele meaning at a distance, and vision plus vision. And he talks about toddlers placing their palms on the screen, and at the end, how grandma presses pause on the prophet. And it really makes, it brings General Conference to kind of a tactile, personal level, and I really appreciate that. The other two by Isaac James Richards, they are kind of a pair. One is Rumination Time. And believe it or not, in this poem, there are notes of grated cheese, Samson and Delilah, and posterity. So you'll have to read it to find out more. And then the other poem by him, Rumination, Love. Again, he takes the mundane, but he does a spin on it to make it feel even a holy and really a different realm, an elevated realm. And I really appreciate and I love that play of light and dark. So this is a highway road trip to his love. They have suffered infertility, and so you'll definitely want to check this one out. It does include billboards, 1-800-JESUS, lots of lawyers, billboards, which is definitely on that 15 to California, and heading north as well, as you traverse ribbons of rock. So I just appreciate these poems and this issue.
Oh, thank you so much, Teresa. It sounds like a great collection, and I love that we have so much poetry in this issue. So thank you for sharing that. And then finally, our cover art and the art inside. We have Amanda Beardsley here for the first time in one of these previews. And Amanda Beardsley is our new art editor. Amanda, would you like to tell us about the art in this issue?
Yes, thank you, Margaret. I know a lot of this art was chosen by you, but it's one of the first issues that I've had the great pleasure to see kind of the behind the scenes work going on and all of your kind of beautiful mastery of like making art. And so I have big shoes to fill, and I'm really excited to fill those. But this entire issue is featuring several works by Julie Yuen Yim, who is an artist born and raised in Hong Kong, and she's shown in art exhibitions in Hong Kong, in the US, and at two of the international art competitions at the Church History Museum. And she's a highly decorated artist as well. She's won 2 Purchase Awards from the Church History Museum as well. And the work that did strike me out of all the works, all of her work is pretty amazing. And so I'm glad that we have like a full spread of numerous works of hers. But the one that really did strike me the most was her work Plan of Salvation 2 from 2019. And this is the cover image of the issue. So this work pictures a swirling array of images from biblical scenes and LDS history. And they're pictured really graphically, think linear, in red lines set against a white background of negative space. There's scenes representing the plan of salvation. So we see from the center this kind of medallion with the creation. We move on to the fall. We have Christ's life, his resurrection and restoration, and etc. So we see lots of scenes from that. And these follow a spiral motif emerging from this center like medallion, which is kind of, it reminded me of some Chinese paintings where you have kind of like the ephemeral fog that's being kind of represented in this center medallion that's really, really beautifully shown. We also see around at the kind of, I guess, flanking the circle, planetary ephemera. This encircles these scenes with decorative lines and almost what resembles, to me, a mandala. Those are Buddhist art circular kind of representations that are also meant to be kind of ephemeral and lost after so many hours of creation. And then we see also the repetition of shapes and circular lines. What I really love too about this work is the process, that it is really symbolically loaded. So the artist uses Chinese paper cutting techniques. And if you go to Chinatown in New York, you see a lot of Chinese paper cutting technique art that you can just pull for fairly inexpensive. But she does this to bring together traditions of worshiping ancestors. So Chinese paper cutting techniques were used in early on, and with some of the earliest paper making as well. So it goes way back, I think, to like the 17th century or 7th century, sorry. And to worship ancestors and gods. But it's applied within Mormon contexts, right? So we see these this evocation of hybrid forms of knowledge. This is what was exciting to me, right? These hybrid forms of knowledge distribution in the arts with the merger of Western Christian theology and Asian media techniques. And I really love this interplay between positive and negative space, foreground and background, and various other dualities, right? These uses of symbolism. So red, right? We in Chinese culture, red is such a loaded color. It's used for luck, right? So to do a Mormon doctrinal scene with red, I think paints it not literally, but metaphorically in that kind of Chinese inflected way. This cultural relativity, right? As well as we see red as a color that's symbolic within Eastern cultures alongside suns and stars that we might see decorating some of the architecture at Temple Square and even crosses, right? So we have this move between narrative realism and with these stories that are very recognizable to us, John the Baptist even, right? There alongside very abstracted symbolism. And so it's that duality that really got me thinking and was very evocative for me and made me appreciate this work upon closer inspection. And so thank you, Margaret, for bringing that to the issue and for allowing me to think a little deeper about it.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. And yeah, I think this is a cover that people are going to want to sit and look at. And I hope that they listen to this issue of the podcast so that they can hear your analysis of it, because I think you bring so much. Thank you all so much. This has been really lovely for me to discuss this issue with you. And I'm excited all over again for people to get the summer 2025 issue that features the Book of Mormon in their inboxes and in their mailboxes. I encourage listeners to go to our website, www.dialoguejournal.com, and there we have a whole host of interviews with the authors of this issue, the cover artist, Julie Yuen Yin, and other wonderful content. Thank you for listening.
Greetings, my name is Rebecca DeSchweinitz, and I'm thrilled to serve as a board member at the Dialogue Foundation and as one of the hosts of Dialogue Gospel Study. In each episode, which we record live the second and fourth Sunday of every month, we welcome esteemed speakers from a variety of backgrounds to share their insights and perspectives on the Come Follow Me lessons. Our aim is to spark meaningful conversations about the scriptures, to connect them to our personal experiences and to our understandings and explorations of the gospel. To stay in the loop with our upcoming lessons and this opportunity to engage with Mormon thought, culture, and belief, be sure to visit dialoguejournal.com and sign up for our newsletter. By doing so, you'll receive updates and timely links to join our live stream lessons. Additionally, you can catch up on our past guests and episodes by subscribing to Dialogue Journal on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Dialogue Podcast Network.